And this is VLeader001, and welcome to an After Dark special of my experiences with role-playing. Now, I've noticed that I haven't been making very useful videos for other people who would like to role-play. And I've just got a spark of inspiration for what I can do to sell that. I am going to tell you how to play Call of Cthulhu when you're running Dungeons and Dragons. Now, if you already know how to do it, or have a really good idea of how to do it, this isn't for you. But if you would like to know how I did it, please stick around. Now, the first order of business to settle is where to begin. Now, this is story-wise, anyway. Now, I found this, the way I did it, I ran it with Planescape, or what was sort of like Planescape, because my characters were regularly visiting other dimensions, and I had them go, well, they were away from the material plane for quite a long time, so I had them return to the material plane, and they had a very different, well, the world was wrong. That's the best way it could be described. They couldn't really see what was wrong, but they found out pretty early that something was wrong, because the police weren't acting the way, well, the guards weren't acting the way that you would normally expect the guards to act. They weren't acting very orderly in such a manner, or in such a manner that they would uphold the law in certain situations. Like, they found that if certain signs or symbols, that's it, were scraped onto the walls of crime scenes, they wouldn't touch the crime scene. They wouldn't investigate. And that brings me to another point. Call of Cthulhu is run in a much more modern setting than what Dungeons and Dragons is used to. So there are electronics, but the way I did it, when it came to the electronics, I kept the stuff in the source books, mainly Call of Cthulhu D20, and what these Chthonian artifacts are is a blending of technology and magic. So they got the magic down. So whenever you would normally expect a check that isn't really covered in the normal Dungeons and Dragons rules, when it came to using these artifacts, I just had them use magic device checks, or overall wisdom checks if it was more electronic than magical. Because you can figure out most electronics with enough intuition. Now, what to do with the magic? Now, the magic in Call of Cthulhu is pretty black art stuff. It's not exactly necromancy, because there's some illusion and evocation stuff in there as well. But most of it is pretty dark. Now, what to do with the magic? I had it so that anybody could cast a magic spell from the Cthulhu mythos, but it would still impact sanity the same way, even if you were already a spellcaster. Because some of the spells in Call of Cthulhu are really, really strange stuff. Like, you wouldn't see most of these things, well, most of these really black art stuff, even in the necromancy school. Like the Song of Hastur, it makes living things' flesh boil. What? Okay. Sorry. I just had a little interruption from the peanut gallery downstairs. They can hear me. Anyway, the Call of Cthulhu magic. Any old schmuck can learn a magic spell, but it would still impact sanity the same way. Now, that just it makes a lot of the spellcasting classes sort of irrelevant in a way, or less important, I guess. But that's how the things worked. It's really how Call of Cthulhu magic works. Anybody can learn these spells. It just impacts your sanity the way that it normally would. But I'm retreading. So, what to do with who do you go up against for the first time? Now, this is entirely a matter of preference. So, if you think that you should go up against a Chthonian for the first, well, as soon as this Call of Cthulhu stuff hits, then you're. I have only one suggestion. If you're going up against a Great Old One, either A, make sure that a lot of the characters are powerful enough to take him, and B, make it so that this Great Old One has an escape plan, or at least can't easily be destroyed. Like my personal favorite is Hastur the Unspeakable or the King in Yellow. This this was my first Call of Cthulhu adventure that I personally ran, and I'm really proud of what I did. I made it to the. I made it really dark. Oddly enough, it was. I had it so my players returned to the material plane, and the printing press had been made. The and the one of the publishing companies that had been using the printing press was printing off these really weird books, and people were buying them. Almost nobody had read them because the word traveled around about these books spe- being spell books, but these spellcasters were reading them and they were slowly turning insane. And one of the books that was being published, in fact the most popular one, was The King in Yellow. And according to the Chthonian mythos, there's this opera made by a madman who went to one of the places of Cthulhu legend. It's The King in Yellow was made by that person. It's an opera that drives the reader insane. and I made it so my characters would read from this book, and they were transported to the city of Carcosa. Now, right there, if you know anything about the King in Yellow, you know that it was not a good. That's really hard to put characters into this city because, for one, it's not really well easily defined, and it's really metaphysical, and things change there. Plus, you would be stalked forever. And I basically had that happen. Was the King in Yellow was stalking my players, and he was sending these weird creatures just to interact with them to see what they would do. And they cut the creatures down as soon as they saw them. So Castor rocks down and tries to talk to them, but they were having none of this. They tried to kill him. They destroyed him, but it took a great effort, but it was not so. It wasn't an easy victory, because if you know anything about the King of Yellow, you may know that the King in Yellow is not really Hastur's real form. The the city. There are two things that this entity needs to sustain its existence, and it's what this entity really is: the city of Carcosa and the lake of Hali. But I'm diving too much into the Cthulhu mythos, and I don't want to bore you too much. So, yeah, those are a couple tips on how to run Call of Cthulhu. I know it's quick, but it's just it's really up to you how you run this. See ya.